Hello, my name is Rebecca Kirstetter, and it's a privilege to be with you today. My mother was a sex educator for 20 years, and much of what she taught me is what I will pass on today. She had two sons, and I have three daughters, all teenagers, ages 12 to 17. And we have never had so much fun, so few power struggles, and such similar values than we do right now. And today I am simply sharing with you the values I learned, the values I've used, and how it's worked for my family for you to decide what you think works best for yours. It is dark out there. It might be darker than you realize. According to Bitfinder, 1 in 10 visits to major porn sites are by children under the age of 10. And you might be sitting there thinking, how is that possible? A lot of kids haven't even gone through puberty at that age. And the answer is clickbait and advertising that is just sent to them, whether or not they wanted it, whether or not they had puberty yet, whether or not they would have sought out that content. And that's why I encourage parents to both limit technology and also limit the location of technology to public spaces. You can also program phones and computers to shut off at a certain time each day so that if your kid was to wake up in the middle of the night and want to get on their phone or computer, it wouldn't work for them. There are ways you can do this. Talk to computer people, you'll figure it out. And if your kids are only watching shows and they're only on electronics when they're in the living room or the dining room, places without a door, places when you're around, it'll be easy to stop by and be like, oh, I have a few seconds. Can I watch a part of this show with you? If it's hard for you to have all three of your kids in the living room watching a show at the same time, maybe it's worth investing $100 or $200 to get a really cheap extra laptop and just cheap headphones so they can all have headphones and be in the living room. But that's still so much better than these devices being in places where they can shut the door. So with the last bit of time, how do we set boundaries of love for our children without too much of a power struggle? Because we know it is hard as parents, and maybe these tips will help. I taught my kids conversation skills so that we could talk in a loving way through all of these challenges, such as limits on how long they can watch a show, or limits on keeping it in a public space, or limits on not being able to date yet. We had to be able to talk at all without yelling. So we had conversation skills and rules. So if they say, you never let me do anything fun, I'd say, you use the word never. That's probably not accurate. I will keep having this conversation with you, but I'd like you to acknowledge that I sometimes do allow you to have fun. Would you like to have this conversation still? And it's amazing how much more of a equal conversation one can have when they just stay away from the words always or never. Another tip in our home is they were allowed to ask me more than once for things, but they weren't allowed to whine without a consequence, and they still had to be patient. So if they asked me for a cookie when they were little and they asked me for a second and I said no, they were allowed to say, but I'd really, really like a second. And then I'd say, no, we're about to have dinner. And they were allowed one more time to talk. And then I would say, I still think one cookie today is the right thing. You have now asked me multiple times. If you ask again after I've said no, I will consider it whining and you will lose some of the cookie you currently have. Would you like to ask again to have your way and lose part of your cookie? Or would you like to be content with the cookie you have? That usually worked. Sometimes they would push the boundaries. They always sometimes push the boundaries, by the way. And then I would have to take half the cookie away that they had. And there would be crying and there would be tears and then there would be hugs. We need to anticipate the times that we are going to have consequences. Another thing we've taught our kids, or we try to teach our kids, is patience. So when my kids want to watch a new anime show or get a new app on their phone, they know they have to give us time to look into it first. I've said 48 hours because I just don't even enjoy looking into those things. So they'll come and they'll like want me to do it right now because they're kids. They really, really want to watch the show and they really, really want to watch it right now. And I will say I'm in the middle of cooking dinner, or I have a deadline tonight and I'm busy working. Remember, the rules in this house is mom and dad get at least 48 hours to look into anything you ask. And if you beg us to do it sooner, then that is a sign of you not being patient or respecting our time. And if you don't want to learn patience and you're not willing to respect our time, I guarantee you will at least say no for a week. Do you want to keep asking me, or are you willing to be patient? Another one we taught is pushing boundaries backfires. So if the boundary is no phone at the table, and slowly the phone starts showing up at the table, and I've been busy with my job for 2 days and I've let it slide. Finally, I'm like, we have this rule of no phones at the table during dinner. I've noticed it's been around for a couple of days. This is the reminder to not do it today and to stop doing it, because when we push boundaries, it backfires. If I see your phone at the table this week, you're going to lose your phone for the weekend or something like that. Or if you've said that they can only watch 45 minutes of TV and they start watching 50 and 55 minutes, and you've let it slide for a couple of days because life happens, I might come over to them and say, I noticed that you watched more than 45 minutes yesterday. I want to remind you that if we push the boundaries that have been made, it backfires. So if you watch more than 40 minutes today, you will miss your TV time for 2 days. These firm boundaries remove the stress. They're proactive. They're proactive ways to love. So in summary, plans flourish best with frequent, gentle rain showers. Long lectures, nobody wins. Waiting until the last minute to say things to our kids that needed this nourishment all along is harder. Little frequent showers of wisdom and perspective, boundaries all along the way, I think is what works best. And the verse that most inspired me when I was a young mom was Deuteronomy 6:5-9. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. We are always talking to our children about the ways of the Lord as we go along simple life, a little bit here, a little bit there. Do the hard work now. God bless.